is that time of year. SEC baseball is really heating up. All the big teams are playing each other. So we will talk a lot of baseball with Trent Intorcia, who, by the way, was part of that incredible '85 Mississippi State baseball team that a lot of people call that the best college baseball team ever to not win a College World Series. That is the team that when you watch the 30 for 30 ESPN documentary, Thunder and Lightning, profiling Will Clark and Rafael Palmeiro. That's that team. Trent was teammates of both of those guys, so we'll talk a lot of baseball. That is in the first half of the show. The second half of the show, we will talk college football, SEC style. I caught up with Chris Doering, our buddy Chris from the SEC Network, and yesterday I caught up with Chris. I've got a wonderful interview you're going to enjoy. We went across the entire SEC, 1 through 14, and took a look at every program's quarterback room. You do not want to miss that in the second half of the show. So I think we're about ready to get going here and talk some college baseball. Evan, I'm still hearing myself. I don't know if we can work on that. There we go. Everything is perfect as we welcome our first guest here on a Friday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. Mr. Trent Intorcia, a buddy of mine, I've known him a long time. College baseball player at Mississippi State, professional baseball player for 3 years in the minor. Trent, crafty left-hander, right? They call those little guys, you're not the tallest guy, nor am I. You were a crafty lefty, is that right? How you doing, buddy?
Crafty, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you? Happy to be with you.
Doing well. Thanks for your time.
Crafty
Great.
lefty.
Yeah, crafty lefty. The right-handers are not crafty righties. It's always the crafty lefties. I don't know why that is.
The crafty righty never makes it.
No, I guess not. He gets hit too hard. Trent, thanks for your time. I love talking baseball with you. Your history on those great Ron Polk Mississippi State teams. 4 of your teammates off one team went to the big leagues. Of course, Clark, Palmeiro, Jeff Brantley, and Bobby Thigpen. And we'll talk a lot of Mississippi State baseball, but boy, this is the time of year. The SEC, a meat grinder of a baseball conference. Right now, things are really taking shape. The Big Five, I like to call it. Vanderbilt, Arkansas, the 2 Mississippis, and Florida. They're all starting to play each other. You were on hand last week. The biggest baseball series in the country was in Starkville. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. State took 2 of 3, but boy, that mid game, Ole Miss got them. But talk about what you've seen so far from the big boys out of the SEC.
Well, what I've seen is too many pitchers throwing 96+ miles per hour. I mean, that's the big thing. There's a couple of them that have touched triple digits. I will tell you this though, Terry. Most of those teams that you refer to can hit. So they can hammer the baseball. So if as a pitcher you have an off night or you miss location, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah. Trent, you have in person seen a lot of the big boys from the SEC. You were at Ole Miss, at Mississippi State this past week, so you caught the 2 Mississippi schools several times already in person. You've seen Arkansas and how good they are. Earlier in the week, you were in Jacksonville. You saw Florida take on JU, so you've seen a lot of the big boys. Let's get back to Florida real quick. A couple things are happening the last 10 days or so for the Gators that I like. I'm starting to see something the last 10 days. Leftwich looks like a new man. It looks like they've shaken him up out of the pen. Leftwich looks like he is ready to have a hell of a final 2 months of the season. Florida's hitting the ball. Fabian still reminds me he's having a Dave Kingman season. The average is not good, but he's still hitting home runs. They need to get him going. But it looks like Florida's starting to find it a little bit, if you ask me, the last 10 days or so in baseball.
Well, and this is the time to do it. I mean, you can really, the old saying, you're a baseball guy, you don't want to peak too soon. And I think Florida, with all the hype at the beginning of the season, you and I talked about this, consensus unanimous #1, that's not a great feeling preseason. And they stumbled out of the gate. They trying to figure out the loaded pitching staff that they've had over Sully's entire time there, struggled, particularly in the bullpen. And putting a guy like Leftwich in the bullpen not only got himself together, kind of jump-started that bullpen as well.
And, looking at Florida, all the eyeballs in terms of what's wrong with Florida have been focused on, well, they're not knocking the cover off the ball like people thought they might. Well, they're not pitching it as good as people think they should maybe. That's gotten all the attention, but compared to old Florida teams, this team doesn't field it as good. They've kicked it around a little bit. I think they're shoring that up. And I think, Trent, that might have to do with, boy, they play a lot of guys in the infield. A lot of guys. Some of those great fielding teams of the past in Gainesville, boy, you knew that third baseman. That shortstop was one guy for, 70 games. Same with the second baseman. But, boy, I tell you, Trent, it looks like the fire might have been lit, and it might have happened at Knoxville on that Sunday when Christian Scott was on the mound. I don't know if you saw it. He quick pitched, according to Tennessee, a guy late in the game. The Tennessee bench started bitching at the Florida team and vice versa. Florida hits a pinch hit 3-run homer. I think that might be the spark. Florida needs a spark, and I think I've seen it lately.
Well, and, back to your earlier point about shuffling the infielders around, coaches are going to do that. They're going to test people out. And, if you're a little bit inconsistent in the field, you're going to get yanked. And if you can hit the ball, that's fine. But the old adage is if you can't play defense, you're not going to win games. You're not in the SEC going to outslug these teams week in and week out, game in and game out.
Well, we got a thought here on our on the Facebook Live. Dan wants to know, and he's just guessing kind of, or wanting you to guess, does Florida have enough time to catch up? Looks like they're playing better baseball. Do they have time to catch up in terms of the regular season? And Trent, let me read it to you here. The schedule: Florida right now in the East is 9-6. Vanderbilt leads at 11-4. A couple games behind. We'll get to this in a minute, but don't look now. Next week, Vanderbilt comes into Gainesville. Your thoughts on Florida trying to maybe do they have enough time to get to the top of the East?
Yeah, we're really only halfway through. The problem is going to be what's Vandy going to do, because their top two guys are virtually unstoppable in the rotation.
Yeah.
Rocker and Leiter, and Leiter, no pun intended, has been lights out. I think Florida's going to have to help themselves for sure and have a little bit of help. But with the gauntlet that the SEC is, you're looking to take 2 or 3 this weekend. So if Mississippi State can go into Vanderbilt and take 2 out of 3, that's 2 weekends in a row for Vandy.
Yeah.
Florida continues to tighten things up, take 2 out of 3, if not a sweep, and just hang in there. And then when they match up against each other, take care of business. And that's easy.
I agree. Dan's Facebook Live question brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Trent, a lot going on. A lot happened last week. Boy, that was talk about the crowd. Mississippi State 3-game series. They hosted their arch rival Ole Miss, 2 top-ranked teams. Talk about the crowds in Starkville over 3 games.
Just a shade under 36,000 total in a 3-game set. So that obviously the state of Mississippi's opened it up, but it was rocking and rolling. And at one point, you could follow it on Twitter or whatever, they were saying this has a super regional feel to it, the atmosphere and the crowd noise. And it was interesting. The Friday night game, Hail State takes care of business. Ole Miss bounces back on Saturday, and then you got the rubber game, and that was a heck of a ball game.
Yeah,
and you
definitely.
What do you have left in the tank, and where are your closers? And Mississippi State's got a guy named Landon Sims that is absolutely electric. He goes 2 innings on a Friday night. The question is, does he have enough juice to come back on Sunday? Probably not going to pitch on Saturday. And he comes back to close it out on Sunday.
Let's take a look, Evan, if you can help us get the schedule up. The SEC baseball schedule. It's the second slide, one more after that. The second one behind that is there we go. Here's the schedule for this weekend. Things got started yesterday. Arkansas defeated South Carolina, beat them yesterday. LSU beat Ole Miss last night as well. Ole Miss now has lost like 3 of the last 4, so they're going the wrong way. But the rest of the schedule for this weekend in the SEC, you see the big one in red at the bottom. Mississippi State goes on the road. After hosting Ole Miss in a huge series, they go on the road for a huge series at Vanderbilt. And then below that, next weekend, not looking too far ahead, Vanderbilt comes into Gainesville, so a huge Vanderbilt series back-to-back, really. They're all big this time, but Vanderbilt with kind of back-to-back trend. That's a tough order now. They go Mississippi State and Florida back-to-back to the Commodores.
Well, and they just left Tennessee too. So I mean, you know, Tennessee has snuck up into the top 10 very quietly. They're sort of my sleeper in the SEC. So that is a team to watch out for if you're trying to climb up and catch Vandy. But you don't get a break, Terry. And this year doesn't matter. Even it's almost as if you play a Missouri, you've got to sweep. And that's not easy to do. You know that. I mean, it 3 straight games, doesn't matter if you're at home or on the road. It's hard to do.
But this was the time the Gators had to make a move. I mean, their record isn't and wasn't what a lot of people were expecting for Florida, their conference record. And, you know, you got to take advantage of the schedule when it presents itself because it's so daunting. Florida, as you said, Florida goes Missouri last weekend sweep, and they are at a average to bad Auburn team. Now, you got to still go win the games, but this is the 6-game run that Florida, if they can take care of business at Auburn and just let the rest of the big boys, the big 4 now, play it out because they're playing each other. Then Florida gets in the mix next week with Vanderbilt coming in. But this is the time of that schedule. It's now or never for Florida.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think to your earlier point, the fact that Florida's hitting on all cylinders finally this year is the timing's good for that. And I'll tell you another factor. They're talking about these host sites. They're talking about these next 2 to 3 weeks defining the moment, which is about 2 weeks earlier than they start choosing national seeds and host sites. And right now, I would, you know, from a national seed perspective, I think Florida's on the outside looking in. Yeah. From hosting a regional, you know, this is the time to show that you can be what you're supposed to be and play with the big boys.
Let's grab another Facebook Live question brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. John, curious to know, and I'll paraphrase it for you, Trent. He's curious to know about the 2 Mississippi schools playing baseball. They're so passionate. Do they just care more about baseball? The crowds in baseball are so enormous compared to how many they can put in. You played there. You played in Starkville. Talk about you know, the passion for baseball, and I guess a little easier to be good in baseball in the South maybe than football with all the SEC powers
and basketball for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, it's and that's kind of been the thing. You know, if you take it back to my era, Ole Miss really wasn't a factor. LSU was. It's been that long for them.
Yeah.
And Florida was kind of up and down then, but all of a sudden Ole Miss caught fire in baseball, and the passion's there because everybody can't wait for the sport of baseball to start in the state of Mississippi because they know they're gonna win, and they essentially outsell basketball.
Yeah, probably.
Unless they're playing each other. You know, when you're averaging, what was it? The Ole Miss's series the weekend before, they were 30,000+ in a 3 games. When you're packing 10,000+ in, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, you did the math right there that I was going to do. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, normal conditions, decent to good team comes into their ballpark. They're putting over 10,000 per game, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Ole Miss and Mississippi State, it's not every day they get 10,000 in basketball. It really isn't. At Comfort Temp, comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise from now until May 31st. Get our preventive maintenance plan for $169 and save almost 40% off the normal cost. Also, any maintenance schedule between now and May 31st, 2021 will be entered to win a Nest thermostat and installation. Talking some more baseball here with Trent Intorcia, former Mississippi State player. Do we have, real quick, Evan, do we have any, let me show people who this guy is. This isn't just some ham and egger I got on. Trent Intorcia, 3 years of professional baseball in the minors, played on Mississippi State's mid-'80s teams. I still think it's that 85 Palmero, Clark, Brantley, Thigpen, Trent Intorcia. I think that's the best college baseball team ever to not win the College World Series. You guys, I guess, got finished 3rd that year. Is that right? Sum that up, how that played out in '85.
Yeah, we finished 3rd, and that was back when you had 8 teams and it was a double elimination tournament. And we're rolling along at 4-0, and then we were beating Texas, and I won't go into the long story, but Texas mounts a comeback. They end up beating us. Then we play University of Miami in an elimination game, and they beat us on a walk-off 2-run homer in the bottom of the ninth.
I know it's a bad memory. Here's a good memory. Trent Intorcia, your professional baseball cards, a couple of them. Look at these numbers here, Trent. 4 and 5. I don't love that a lot. Let's take a look now. 100 innings pitched that are usually a lot. Not bad numbers. There's a look at some of the ball players that Trent was playing with, a couple of Hall of Famers at Mississippi State. There's another minor league card. The guy was tooling around the minors as a crafty lefty, not wanting to get a real job. But Trent, I know you had a good time collegiately and a few years riding those buses. What is that, Bellingham? Where is that?
That is in Washington State, just north of Seattle.
4 and 2, 55 and what is that, a third? Let me see the strikeouts. Okay, 29. Okay, not terrible. Hit 61. I don't like that, Trent. Too many hits with those innings pitched right there. I don't like that at all. I'm gonna have to release you, Trent. That's what I'm gonna have to do.
That was early in the season. Hey, we actually won the league that year, so I've got a ring for that. That was a pretty good team. Bunch of college kids that didn't care who played where. Yeah. We just went out and took care of business. But I mean, that was a great time. And it's so hard to make it. It's so hard to even get to the minor leagues. It's hard to play in the SEC. I mean, it's so you just look back at memories and enjoy them.
Hey, tip of the hat, man. I played Division I baseball and didn't get close to being drafted. I had to ride back from my last game and think, well, what do I do now with my life? At least you got to go play some minor league baseball. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Now it's time for Peachland Dentistry, JC and the QB weekend picks, but we don't have any weekend picks, so I jumped that a little bit. Filling in for Shane and JC, Trent. I'm trying to figure their show out. And, of course, my mind is college sports today. But, hey, thanks to Peachland Dentistry. Anyway, Trent, got a few more minutes with you. I contend that college baseball is, and I tip my hat to the committee now. I think they're savvy enough. I think the committee, when they assign regionals and super regionals, I think they put a lot more weight in the 30-game regular season in the SEC than the tournament. And I think they should. Also, when you start wanting to host or assign regional host sites, there's money involved as well. Trent, not that the baseball tournament in Hoover doesn't matter, but boy, if you're one of the big boys and you do your work during the 30, the trend now is to kind of go to Hoover and maybe make sure your rotation's set. Am I right? There's much more weight regular season SEC 30 games than Hoover, and that's a lot different than years gone by.
No, you are right, and Hoover means something. If you're a bubble, you've got to go deep in there. But really, and Sully has said this, I think Lamonis has said it from Mississippi State, and you and I have talked about it for 2 or 3 years now. If you go deep in that tournament and you end up in the losers bracket and and you're on a run and you blow through all of your pitching in that week, come regional time, your rotation's not set. That makes you worse off. And if you lose early in that SEC tournament and you've taken care of business in the regular season, it almost is, as crazy as it sounds, it almost makes sense to lose and get bounced.
It really does in a weird way. You've done your heavy lifting in 30 games. That committee is savvy enough now, if you ask me. They're savvy enough now. I think they see that. Now, the SEC tournament, baseball tournament in Hoover, does benefit. I think it really benefits the middle of the pack and below, somebody that needs to go on a 4 and 5 game winning streak and go hoist a trophy. I think, if you're a team with, low 30 wins, right, in the regular season, you could use a heater in that tournament. Go win 4, go win 5, go hoist a trophy. That might get you into a regional. But, I think the big boys do their work during the 30-game regular season, and they move on. I think it's 5 teams, as we talked about. I call it the Big 5 in SEC baseball. A couple other teams kind of pecking away. Boy, Tennessee's had a little resurgence in baseball the last year or two. They're pretty good this year, Tennessee. They're
actually really good, and they hit the ball too. I don't know that they have top to bottom the pitching that stacks up, with the big five you were saying. Of course, a couple teams in that big five are struggling on the bump too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to take that into account. But Tennessee's hot right now, and the question is, can they stay hot? And are they a team that, even though they're ranked 6th, they're not being talked about as a national seed?
No.
And I find that.
Yeah, they do get buried, don't they? They inched up to 4th in the nation at one point this year. I remember they were sitting at 4 in one of the polls, but they get buried a little bit. They're not one of the traditional baseball powers, but they do get buried a little bit. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that all small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State Bank has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. Center State Bank, a member of the FDIC. Trent, a couple minutes left with Trent Intorcia, former Mississippi State baseball player, does a great job following college baseball for me and different entities that I work for. Switching over real quick, by the way, Trent is made possible on the Titan MRI hotline. Thank you very much to the folks at Titan MRI for always sponsoring the guests we have here on Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. Trent, I don't know if you follow too much the softball. I love SEC softball, particularly with the SEC network. You get the games all weekend now, and the game of fast pitch softball is so much fun. Boy, it's a three-team race in SEC softball. The 2 big boys, Alabama and Florida, who have won national titles recently and won multiple national titles recently, and Arkansas has come out of nowhere. Trent, do you find yourself watching much fast pitch softball now that it's everywhere with these networks?
I do, actually. I mean, I watched quite a bit of it, and I caught Oklahoma's really good this year. And, they're good every year, but they were undefeated or had 1 loss coming into the weekend, and they ended up they lost the Sunday game. But I was watching them play, and they hit, I can't tell you how many home runs they hit. I think it was double digits for the weekend. But I watched a little bit of Florida, and Arkansas is a surprise, but they've been kind of climbing the ladder the last couple of years, and I don't know, maybe they want to be like the boys, the Arky boys.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a year if you think about it for baseball and softball for Arkansas. Think about that. I don't follow softball as much as a softball aficionado, but I mean, they opened up undefeated in softball. They had like 13-0 in the SEC. I think they've kind of come out of nowhere. So what hell, think about Arkansas basketball, Arkansas baseball, Arkansas softball, and they feel like Sam Pittman and the boys are doing a great job in football. So, man, Arkansas, a rebirth in SEC sports right now. Yeah,
they do. And to your point of Pittman, they're really high on him there.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the surprise pick of the year in the SEC as far as a head coach.
I want to thank all of our Facebook Live questions. We can't get to all of them with Trent, where he's only got a limited time. But again, Facebook Live questions, as always, brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Trent, about 90 seconds. Thumbnail, in case I don't talk to you anymore this weekend or next weekend. Thumbnail, what do you think happens in and around some of the big series? Mississippi State at Vandy this weekend, and Vandy coming into Gainesville to take on the Gators next weekend. 90 seconds. How do you see maybe those playing out looking ahead?
I'm going to sound like a homer, but I like Mississippi State going in and taking 2 out of 3 from Vandy. I just think that with their relief pitching, if they can get decent games out of their starters where they 5 or 6 innings, I think they've got the bullpen to take care of business. They're going to have to hit a little bit, and I think Florida has a chance to take 2 out of 3. I don't think there's going to be a sweep either way there.
Yeah.
Vandy is certainly vulnerable on Sunday from a starting pitching perspective. And if you can get, the key to Vandy is if you can get the pitch count up on those top 2 starters they have early and get into their bullpen, you can beat them.
Politics, they say, has strange bedfellows a lot of times. Sports, a lot of times, has strange bedfellows. Gator Nation, this weekend, they are huge Mississippi State fans, right? Florida would like to see State get at least 2. of 3 over Vandy, and then Vandy comes into Gainesville. It's funny how that works, but boy, I've called it all year long. It's a meat grinder in SEC baseball, and I can't wait for this weekend. Can't wait for the rest of the year. It's heating up. It is baseball time. Trent, good job. Thank you for your time. As always, we appreciate it.
Good to see you. Thanks.
That is my buddy Trent Intorcia, former Mississippi State baseball player, 3 years of minor league baseball. He really knows and loves college baseball. Halfway through a Friday edition, Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. Shane and JC out today. They're both back on Monday. Now, don't go anywhere. You're going to love what we've got next. I caught up with Chris Doering from the SEC Network. I had a chance to interview Chris about all the SEC quarterbacks in the entire conference, 1 through 14. We're going to go through each football program and assess their quarterback room. You don't want to miss that. Coming up next, Chris Doering right here on Pot Up with Matthews in the morning.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doering Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okito America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TV Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Looking for all type of restaurant people, managers, servers, bartenders, hosts, cooks, dishwashers, bussers. If you think you're good in the restaurant business, then give us a call.
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill job fair is open now through May 15th. All you have to do is go to spurriersdraft.com and fill out an application.
We're looking for the good team members, and we're looking for people with a wonderful attitude that can make Spurrier's Gridiron Grill the best we can possibly be. To apply, go to spurriersdraft.com.
Welcome back to that show right there. College Sports Today. Time to talk some SEC quarterbacking, if you don't mind, and I don't think you do. We'll have Chris Doering. You know Chris from the SEC Network. He knows that subject just about as well as anybody. We've teased it a little bit. Let me show you the graphic we're going to talk about real quick. What I did now that spring practice is over, I've kind of, not an official, just kind of how I feel, ranking the SEC quarterback position 1 through 14 in terms of most comfortable to least comfortable. This is not a necessarily who's the best quarterback ranking in the SEC, but the programs, how comfortable are they coming out of spring practice with their quarterbacks? That's kind of what we're talking about today. And with that, let me hit a couple buttons and welcome our guest, Mr. Chris Doering from the SEC Network. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Terry. Good to be back on with you. And I can't tell you how you've already made egregious errors on that list, so I can't wait to get into it with you today.
Absolutely. But I wanted to clarify, we're not ranking, this is the best quarterback and the worst. Depending on your program, how do you feel? So we're going to have some fun with it, Chris. I know you know it as well as anybody. And basically all of our SEC programs have wrapped up spring practice. There's 1 or 2 schools still having spring practice, but the SEC is pretty much wrapped up. Chris, let's get into it. I put Ole Miss at 1. Matt Corral, if I ranked preseason first team all SEC quarterback, I would go Matt Corral. I think Ole Miss feels great about their quarterback situation. I think Missouri, I've got them number 2 with Connor Baselick. I think he turned in a pretty good season. Talk about 1 and 2 if you can. Anything jump out? Ole Miss, Corral, Missouri, Baselick.
Well, I think first of all, you have to think about quarterback positions and not only who the starter is, but what you have available in the depth at the position.
Nice.
And it's amazing to think back a year ago at this time, Terry, at least for me. I thought it was going to be John Rice Plumlee at Ole Miss, and it turns out Matt Corral, maybe we were undervaluing a little of his athleticism and what he's able to do in the quarterback run game. John Rice Plumlee rushed for over 1,000 yards in 2019, and we thought it was just an afterthought that they'd find a way to build on that. But Matt Corral was tremendous. Obviously had great weapons around him. One of the questions is how you replace Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah heading into next season. But really feel good about him, and the fact that you have a guy like John Rice Plumlee on the roster to be able to plug in there and use in creative ways, I think really does make that situation really good. And then Connor Bazelak, when he took over last year, was just a shot in the arm for that Missouri offense. I thought that Coach Drink and what that staff has done with him and his development was pretty amazing. So how do you build on that in year number 2? Will be an important and developing receivers there also. But I would agree with you. Those two situations are amongst the best in the SEC in 2021.
I think you're a lot like me. I'm a lot like you. I really like what's going on at Missouri. I think Coach Drinkwitz and I like the culture. I like the feel. I think Missouri is going to be a tough out. Sitting probably in that third spot for a while and nipping at the heels of Florida and Georgia. I love what's going on at Missouri football. Number 3, and we'll spend a little time on it. I've got Vanderbilt, and I'm not saying Ken Seals is the third best quarterback in the SEC. I think for the first time in years, Vanderbilt, preseason at least at the quarterback position, feels good about it. He had a good, solid season as a freshman. I think Vanderbilt's very happy with their quarterback.
I would disagree with you, not in terms of the ranking, but disagree with you that it reminds me of something that happened very recently, in fact, and that's Kyle Shermer being a 4-year starter at Vanderbilt. Ken Seals starting as a freshman, doing as well as he did, leads you to be pretty excited about the future. Candidates around him with a similar type of weapons. Think back what Kyle Shermer had around him at the receiver and tight end positions. Kalijah Lipscomb, maybe one of the most underrated guys we've had in this league in the last few years. So can they put some weapons around him? That's going to be the question. But the word moxie, I think moxie is kind of a goofy word sometimes, but moxie is what I would use to describe what Ken Seals had. His competitiveness coming out of Texas high school football, it really helped provide a little bit of swagger for that offense. And they developed a little bit of personality last year behind Ken Seals.
Well, you made a great point. Wouldn't you love to see Seals, and he would love it as well, and those 3 weapons from a couple years ago, that receiver, that tight end, and that running back, they were weapons. I hope you know what, for his sake, I hope they can find some weapons and an offensive line to go around him. Georgia, I've got JT Daniels at 4 games at Georgia, but he played some games at USC. He's settled. It's his job. Georgia, I think, feels real good. Now, Carson Beck might have taken the number 2 spot, so they may feel good about that, but I think Georgia feels real good about what they expect JT Daniels to get done at quarterback.
Yeah, I think the reason you feel good about him is because even though it's a small sample size, 4 games last year as a starter, he provided 2 things that I think you need. One, he got the wide receivers involved. You saw George Pickens, and I know he's out this year, but he was revitalized with the threat of the downfield pass. Those receivers all got a little bit more involved in the game plan, and I think that certainly helped them. But where it helped the most was what it did to open up the run game. Go back and look at what they did against Missouri and in that ball game. In South Carolina, put up huge rushing numbers simply because of the threat of the downfield pass that was present when they played Mississippi State last year. So I really like what JT Daniels brings. I'm excited about watching Todd Monken kind of build on what they did last year. I think the pairing of Monken at the coordinator position and JT Daniels is really going to be productive this year for the Bulldogs.
Let me show again the list. This is a list I put together, and we're walking down what I've put together, and Chris has given his commentary on the quarterback position at the 14 SEC football programs, who feels most comfortable, and then coming down all the way to 14. Real quick, Chris, let me put the list up for our viewers to see. We've gotten our way down to number 5 Florida, 6 Alabama, 7 Mississippi State. Again, this is a kind of a list I put together, but I wanted to show that again for the viewer. 5 Florida. I think Florida is pretty comfortable with, I think Dan Mullen and staff on the offensive side, I think they're confident. They see a mature, older, been around the block, been in the fire some. He's played, Emory Jones has played against the Auburns and led a drive, and played against Georgia and Jacksonville, and he's now been in an SEC championship game and played Alabama here and there, LSU on the road, and accounted for touchdown. I think Florida's pretty comfortable, and AR behind him got some playing time. Your thoughts on Florida's comfortableness with their quarterback room right now?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Anthony Richardson, because I don't necessarily believe it's a foregone conclusion that Emory Jones is the starting quarterback in 2021. As you know, I come from the school of competition at the quarterback spot with the way that Coach Spurrier tried to bring out, development and excellence from his quarterbacks by creating that competition. And so I think you'll go into camp with players that feel really confident about both of those guys. And to your point, the experience that Emory Jones got, I think he's the exception to the rule now. The guy at the quarterback position that stayed around, that redshirted, that learned from Kyle Trask on how to prepare. So I do think they're excited about that, but I'm not necessarily sure it's his job at this point in time. I'm excited to see what Anthony Richardson brings too.
The way Florida has nurtured Emory along reminds me, you remember these years, that 10, 15-year run where FSU had a 2-year assembly line. Buddy, and I've got the order mixed up, but buddy, you would understudy for 2 years, freshman and sophomore. You were an old, mature, knew the playbook, been around to the stadiums, junior and senior. They went through P.T. Willis and Busby and Cannell and Charlie Ward and all that. It was I love when that happens. Again, you make a really good point. We're in an era where it's hard to do that anymore with portals and transfers and leaving early.
What changed for Florida State was when they had to go with Chris Ricks as a freshman. Like literally, that kind of changed the whole course of that program. And it's never ideal, but they did have that assembly line working, and I'm that's why I hope that Emory Jones wins the job, because he's done the right thing, because he's stayed around, because he's shown his commitment to getting better and not searching for that greener pasture like so many other quarterbacks would have.
Almost halfway through the list here, Chris Doering giving his opinion on the quarterback rooms around the SEC now that spring ball is over. You mentioned don't forget the behind the guy, the number 2 guy. That brings us to Alabama. I think Alabama's pretty comfortable with the hotshot West Coast recruit Bryce Young. Most people say, wait a minute, we saw him the other day. He's not that big. But I think Alabama's comfortable. But, buddy, not a whole lot back there at the number 2 position. Alabama's quarterback room right now.
I do think it's amazing, again, the perspective on how things change after, just a year. Last year, a lot of people thought Mac Jones was going to get beaten out by Bryce Young. Yeah. We're talking about one of the great college football seasons at the quarterback position of all time, maybe not occurring. Had they had spring practice, now I don't think it would have happened, knowing what we know about Mac Jones and how good he is, but there were a lot of people thought that had they had spring practice last year, Bryce Young would have won that job. Yeah. He's a guy that got a chance to play some and mop up duty over last season. He's played against good competition. It seems to be the other question is how they replace guys like Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. But what we've seen is an assembly line of receivers coming out of Tuscaloosa for the last 10 years or so, dating back to Julio Jones. So there's some talent there. And I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about seeing is what this offense looks like under Bill O'Brien. That has been the most impressive thing to me. Nick Saban opening things up, even though he's a defensive-minded guy, going with Lane Kiffin in a more pass-oriented offense, and the way that each coordinator after that has built on what the previous one did. Brian Daboll building on what Lane Kiffin did. Yeah. Mike Loxley adding the RPO game that's been so effective for them. Steve Sarkisian coming in with his sets and motions and route combinations. So how does Bill O'Brien put his fingerprint not only in the offense, but on the development of Bryce Young specifically?
It's amazing, Coach Saban. He has not 1 but 2 current coaches on staff that were very recent NFL head coaches. Yeah. I mean, Doug Marrone's your offensive line coach, for God's sakes. Alabama, though, I think they're fairly comfortable with their quarterback room. Number 7, Mississippi State. In Coach Leach's offense, you don't have to throw it far, but you're going to throw it a lot, and you better hit a crossing route. Will Rogers played pretty well. He got thrown in the fire and kind of took over that position, played pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, I thought he played really well, and he had some experience in a similar offense in high school, so maybe it was a little more comfortable for him than it was KJ Costello. Yeah. But having talked to some of those Mississippi State coaches, it's just a matter of time until that offense gets on track. It's really about repetition. They don't do a lot in the passing game. It's very simple, but what they do is they do it very well. And having a quarterback that understands the throws and what you have to take and being able to create yards after the catch for the receivers is ultimately what's going to help that offense be better this season. So I'm really excited about Will Rogers, and I think that they take a big step forward offensively from where they were last year.
We'll combine a couple more. 8 and 9 on the list. I put Auburn at 8, Bo Nix. I think this is a by default 1 year. You got to play him. I've seen enough myself of Bo Nix. I may be wrong. He may prove me wrong. And one of the most intriguing quarterbacks, I can't wait to see how it plays out. I've got at 9, Arkansas, KJ Jefferson. Jefferson's that big, strong. I loved everything I saw, the little bit I saw of him. And I know they just lost Woods, the receiver, which shocked me a little bit. But, man, Arkansas has a brutal schedule. But if they get a little quarterback play, and I think Jefferson's going to be the guy, I think Arkansas could cause some headaches for some teams. Auburn, Nix, Arkansas, Jefferson.
Well, first and foremost, I feel bad for Bo Nix. The situation that he walked into as a lifelong Auburn fan, his dad having been a star at the same position at the same school, it's a tough shadow to kind of get out from. And the expectation level as a 5-star was extremely high for him. I don't necessarily know that he'd been developed the way that he needs to. But I am excited. I think you look at what Brian Harsin did in terms of hires at the coordinator spots, going out and getting Mike Bobo and Derek Mason, 2 guys with head coaching experience. Derek Mason, most recently a head coach at Vanderbilt. Mike Bobo having played in this conference at the same position. Brian Harsin playing at the quarterback spot. I think he's going to get the necessary attention that he needs to make that step forward finally. And I'm with you on KJ Jefferson as well. He got some valuable time last year when Felipe Franks was hurt. And that experience can help a lot. Look at what Mac Jones did. When Tua Tagovailoa went down, he got some experience to get under his belt and also gain the confidence of his teammates because of that. I think you'll see a similar situation in Fayetteville this year. Boy,
I thought, real quick and we'll move on, I thought last year with Bo Nix, you could almost see the weight on his shoulders. The season looked heavy, and there was his dad, and he was on camera all the time, and the legacy, and it wasn't going good for Auburn, and Alabama was being Alabama. You could see the weight on Bo Nix. It was a little bit sad to watch, I thought. Number 10, we're getting toward the bottom now. LSU, Brennan, Max Johnson, Finley, 3 guys, no guys. Is it going to take half the season to work its way out? Sometimes you lose 2 games if it takes half the season. I'm a little concerned if LSU doesn't have a guy and they're doing quarterback derby for 4 or 5 games. What do you think at LSU quarterback-wise?
Here's where I really disagree with you, Terry. I think this is one of the best situations in the SEC. You're talking about 3 guys that have played a lot of meaningful snaps. Having to go to Finley and to Johnson last year was not ideal, but I thought both of those guys got a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people undervalue just how good Miles Brennan is and was at the start of last season. I mean, he started off red hot. They were putting up big numbers. Their defense stunk, so they had to. Mm-hmm. But I think, don't necessarily sleep on that room as a whole and Miles Brennan individually, because I think from talking to a lot of people around there, he's got the perfect mindset. He wants to be an LSU guy, just like Kyle Trask wanted to be a Florida Gator. I think ultimately it probably could be Max Johnson. I think Finley might be the odd man out. But I actually like the situation in Baton Rouge a lot better than some of the other teams on that list.
Moves us to great points, by the way. That moves us to number 11. I've got Texas A&M, and I've got a theory, Chris. Let me throw you the theory. As we sit here taping here late in the week, I know the portal is still open. The fact that Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M didn't go bring in a portal guy at quarterback tells me he believes a lot in an unknown Haynes King, right? To me, maybe I'm reading too much. The fact that he didn't bring in a couple, 2 or 3 guys, and maybe he talked to some and they said no, but that kind of tells me Jimbo might think he's got something in this unknown Haynes King.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, Jimbo certainly knows how to coach the position. I don't know much about either of the guys that are competing for that job this year, but what I do know is A&M was successful last year because they were able to run the ball, and they were able to run the ball because their offensive line was dominant. Now, they lose 4 starters up front, but they got some quality players that they've recruited at that position. So if they can keep that same mindset, I mean, it's amazing to look at what they do versus everybody else. A tight end, a fullback in the backfield, running downhill, play action pass off of that. Like, I really believe they created the culture last year. And even though they lose Kellen Mond, I do think that they still are a team that's going to be vying for an SEC championship and potentially a college football playoff berth like they did last year. If the quarterback can just play average. Don't turn the football over. You don't have to win the game. Just don't lose it for us.
I know you and I may get proven wrong, and you and I had the same feeling on Kellen Mond, who was there a million years. He never looked smooth or comfortable throwing the football. A lot of times he got hot. He would get hot, but boy, he was ugh.
It wasn't consistent, but I thought he got better. I was impressed last year, particularly on third down with what he did. You go back and watch that Florida game. Florida blitzed the hell out of him on third down. He knew where the blitzes were coming from. He knew when he was protected and when he needed to get it out on a hot. He threw with accuracy. It just needed to be more consistently that way. You go back and look at Mississippi State. He didn't play quite as well. But I think there's a lot of people at the NFL level that are excited about what Kellen Mond brings in terms of just raw athleticism and the coaching that he got from Jimbo Fisher.
I think his freshman year was your senior year. He was there forever.
It seemed like that, doesn't it? He's been around for a long time, no doubt.
Ever. Wrapping up, we're going to put the last three on my list. I'm going to put them together and let you go at it. I've got South Carolina at 12. I still don't know what happened behind the scenes with Ryan Helinski. I thought he was pretty good, and he's transferred out of there. Luke Doty, he was young. I've got Kentucky at 13. Joey Gatewood, if not now, when? And then Tennessee, I think's a mess. Hendon Hooker comes over from Virginia Tech. Bailey's still there. Maurer, the kid from Ocala's there. Joe Milton just popped up in Knoxville from Michigan. He kind of was up and down. South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee. Am I correct? I think they're all kind of holding their breath with their quarterback room a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of jumbled in there together. I'm actually calling the South Carolina spring game on Saturday, so I'll have a chance to talk to the coaches, have a chance to watch a little bit more. Everybody, Luke Doty was a highly recruited quarterback coming out, and so maybe with a new offense and some new voices in his ear, he can develop into what the potential people thought he had coming out of high school. I'm with you too on Tennessee, but I'm actually quietly optimistic about Kentucky, man. Liam Cohen, Mark Stoops is a defensive-minded guy, and he's raved about their passing game during spring and the success they've had throwing the ball vertically. The quarterback situation has not been good there, but the receivers have been even worse. They haven't been able to separate at all. So I think they finally got some playmakers at that position, and I think whoever wins that job at the quarterback spot is going to have some success, kind of like what LSU did in 2019, coming into the new century here. So I do think that's something to keep our eye on. And then Tennessee, they're just going with the masses of asses theory. Like, nobody on that roster really has me all that excited. But perhaps Josh Heupel, the reason he was brought to Tennessee was to be able to develop quarterbacks and create some fun offensively. Maybe he can make that happen. I'm just not very optimistic at all about just the number situation in Knoxville right now. What that can hold for them in 2021.
I hate to say it. I've been saying it the last several months in the offseason. Unfortunately for Tennessee, it's a total rebuild. It's still a total rebuild. And their best 4 or 5 football players are wearing Oklahoma uniforms. Oklahoma got about 5 of their starters. I'm not to sell Kentucky short. Bo Allen is in the mix, kind of there. He's been around a little bit. And they got a transfer from Penn State I saw a little bit. Will Levis is he played some Big Ten football. So, but boy, Joey Gatewood from our neck of the woods in North Florida, if not now, when. So that's a quick look. Chris, thank you so much. Before we get out of here, tell people about radio, your consistent radio. Where can people find you, or Sirius, or where can people find you outside of the SEC network, of course?
I'm on the SEC channel on Sirius XM. That's 8 to 11 Eastern on weekdays. So year-round, we're not only talking football, we're getting into all the other sports as well. Obviously, spring football is a big topic now. I'll have some stuff coming up, as I mentioned, for the SEC network on television with the South Carolina game. And before you know it, we'll be talking about fall practice starting here before too long.
Yeah, I hope you're getting – this is kind of your rest time because, man, you guys are going to get on it now. You got a lot of late nights on Saturday. I know it's a labor of love. We all love your show and your broadcast partners. It's a great show. I'll leave you with this. Have you been over to the Taj Mahal of restaurants, Spurrier's Gridiron and Grill? Have you been taking a tour yet?
I have not been. I'm looking forward to it. I heard the highlight of the whole restaurant is the bathroom wallpaper with all the ball plays drawn up. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Chris, if I can keep you 45 seconds, I've taken a couple tours. We'll do our show there. They have a broadcast room in the restaurant. There's a museum, his Heisman Trophy, and everything will be there, Coach Spurrier. We'll do this show every Monday and Friday live from the restaurant. The upstairs, you're right. Let me tell the people what you're talking about. Upstairs is a little more casual. It's an open air bar, covered, but open air, and it's called Visors, the top part. And the men's and women's room, it blew me away. In both the upstairs, because it's more casual, the wallpaper, Chris, and you've seen them, Coach Spurrier saved in notebooks all of his ball plays. Their X's and O's and, the diagram.
Yeah, hand-drawn,
all of those individual sheets.
Generated.
It's unbelievable. All those sheets have been made into wallpaper. I think it's going to be for sale, but it's already up there. So, Chris, I predict the men's room upstairs in Visors will be the most selfie taken by guys. Chris, there's tons of plays for you. It'll say 1995, Florida 62, Tennessee 37, Doering touchdown pass from Danny Werfel. It's got the X's and the Y's, and it's all his plays in his handwriting, and it's unbelievable.
There's two spots I'm going when I get there, Terry. I'm going to the Steamers Y7 versus Kentucky in 1993, and I'm going to the Bandit left blue draw 9 double pass that I threw against Alabama. So I'm gonna seek those out and get some pictures by those.
You've known the head ball coach a lot more personal for longer than me. I've got to know him very good the last year. What a unique individual. There's only one. He's a treasure. He's a treasure, isn't he?
No doubt.
I think you guys will be doing some work. I know the SEC Network has reserved that broadcast room, I think, for a bunch of broadcasts. Alabama's in town and Tennessee and FSU. So hope to see you. You're gonna love the restaurant. Everybody is. Spurrier's Gridiron Grill featuring Visors Rooftop Bar. Chris, as always, thanks for your time. Good insight. Have a good call tomorrow. And anytime you need anything, buddy, we're a phone call away.
I appreciate you, Terry. Thanks for having me, man.
That is Chris Doering. We appreciate his time. We'll take a quick break, come back with more College Sports Today.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doering Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Chomp Harder Apparel, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
This day in sports history brought to you by Comfort Temp. 1939 on this date, the great Ted Williams hit his first major league home run. Don't forget now, follow and like us. This show, Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning, on Facebook and YouTube. You can listen to us on 30 digital platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many more. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, La Macron, Sushi Hana, Bass Pro Shop. Coming June 2021 is the big one. The head ball coach, the restaurant you know as Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors Tailgate and Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. Refresh your vehicle with your brand and a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. April is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Speaking of wrap, today's show is a wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. Thanks to Chris Doering and Trent Intorcia, our two great guests today on the program. Also, Evan Miller for doing a bang-up job as always. If you missed either one of those interviews, check it out. We'll have the Chris Doering interview coming up at 11 a.m. on College Sports Today. Just follow my show on Facebook, and we'll do it again at 11 a.m. That'll wrap it up. Really enjoyed filling in for the guys. Don't forget now, Monday, Shane and JC right back here, as always, running Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend, everybody.